So welcome everyone and welcome to the Business Hour here on Unity FM. I'm your host Umar Rashid. Hope you're good, hope you are well, and welcome to the Business Hour. This is a show where we talk about all things business, or whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, even an employee, we have got you covered because we talk about all things related to business through our amazing guests. Now, before I introduce today's guests, if you've not been able to listen to the previous shows, then do not worry, you can do so on my YouTube channel at Umar Rashid HR. You can also connect with me on other social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Again, the handles for all of those is at Umar Rashid HR, and you can go back to and listen to all the previous shows and that we've aired. Now, today's guest I work closely with on other sort of projects, and I've got to know him quite well over the couple of the last few years. We have good banter, we have good synergy, but he is someone who started working in retail and then discovered a passion for a career in marketing and advertising, and that led him to making a brave decision to launch his own outdoor advertising business. And he's had some very interesting brands as part of that business. He then was headhunted to a leading OnLogistics company, or a logistics company. Is now currently the marketing manager there, but he's also looking to embark on a new business, and he's also an associate member of the CIM. He's the one and only Gurdas Singh.
Wow, to be on the show, man. I've seen you do some amazing stuff with the show. I've seen some great guests on here. I've listened to it a good few times, and I'm actually quite excited to be on here, man. So first off, thank you for inviting me, man. Thank you.
No worries. It's good. It's good. I'm glad you've managed to find time to come on.
You know what? I was thinking. I was trying to get my level up to be, worthy of such a platform. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm here, and you know what I mean. It's been a while. It's quite surreal because we've talked about it. You talk about it a lot, and it comes out a lot, and it's doing really well. And I thought, you know what? It's quite. I feel quite proud, you know what I mean? Firstly of you, because obviously you've done some amazing things, you know what I mean? You carry on doing it.
Listen, as humble as I am, it's not about me today, it's about you, it's about the guests today.
I'm trying to get the best out of you by giving you that energy, you know what I mean? So no, man, it's good, man, it's good.
We have a lot of guests on the show, a lot of guests that I've met through networking, and they obviously talk about their networking journey. And we're kind of like a live living example of how we met at networking 2018, and how you're in the world of marketing, I'm in the world of HR, and you're just thinking, okay, there's not really much synergy, not much, but as personalities and as characters and the drive that we have, we've actually obviously we run a networking event together. And it's going places, and people attend, and they love our banter, they love our energy, sort of stuff. We have our podcast together.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just crazy what networking and how 100%. If you have an open mind to things and the opportunities, where it can take you.
Well, 100%, man, 100%. I mean, that's the thing. I think people go in with networking thinking they want certain things out of it, mainly business, but they don't go in thinking what else can happen. And to be honest, when we kind of met through networking and stuff, I think what happened was we just kind of saw synergy in our personality, and I think we're just banterous people. We just like we like a good laugh. We like, you know what I mean. And I think that's what happened. We started just saying, it's all right, guy, that guy. You know what I mean? He's all right, yeah. And literally, it is just from there we started. If you'd have told me we met about 4 years ago, if you'd have told me we've gone on this journey of setting up our own networking event and doing all this other stuff and helping support each other,
becoming good friends,
really good friends. You said it first, so thank you. I would have been like, no way. Yeah. I'm like, no way. Like, I'm not gonna. Somebody I meet at networking, I'm never gonna have this relationship with. And I think people kind of poo-poo it and chuck it away of, I'm only there to win business, but that's not what it is. You actually, as sad as it sounds, you're going there to make friends.
But connections, relationships, and all of that sort of stuff. But then it's about building those relationships, connections.
100%,
isn't it? Yeah.
And to be fair, with credit to you, I mean, you were actually the reason why I think social media was what was the first thing that highlighted me to you. So I used to see you on LinkedIn and stuff, and obviously I was trying to, I would launch the businesses. I was trying to kind of put myself out there, and I saw you at an event, and straight away already my attention to you was heightened because I was like, oh, I know this guy. I've seen him around on LinkedIn and stuff.
Not gonna lie, I felt like a celebrity.
And then when you walk in the room, you've got a bit of credibility. And I think that's what happened. And funnily enough, we met at that same networking event the month after. And that was literally, I mean, this is the irony of it is I'd met you once prior to that.
Yeah.
Didn't know you from Adam before that. Only saw you on LinkedIn a couple of times kind of thing. And you literally, I mean, at the time, you turned around to me and you said, there was talks about doing a networking event together. And you turned around and you go, would you want to do a networking event together? And I just turned around and I looked at you and I was like, yeah, go on then. In my head thinking, he's going to forget about this. Nothing's going to happen. Like, most conversations you have with people, nothing's going to happen. Don't worry about it.
He's going to go home and realise, what have I done? What have I asked him for? Yeah,
100%. In fact, but what actually happened is I went home, you called me like half an hour later and you were like, so how are we doing this then? So what's going on? I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, so how are we going to get this event up and running and that? And I was like, oh man, this guy's actually serious. And I think what's interesting, with that is that throughout the kind of journey and stuff, you get held accountable through networking, you get held accountable through the relationships you have. And I think that's one thing people should take out of networking. And it's funny how from what a small interaction we had turned out to be something crazy, you know what I mean? So, man, it was a good start.
I met you and you just started it was quite niche. It was taxi advertising. You were very much about, okay, look, we can do marketing, advertising, etc., but we do it through the means of through taxi advertising. Yeah, 100%. Before we get to that, and before we talk about that niche and we talk about the benefits and etc., how did you get into marketing? How did your career get into that? This is what I want to do.
It's a funny story, Omar, because if
I don't laugh, it's not going to be that funny, yeah?
Yeah, I ain't that funny, to be honest. It's just it's what people say, isn't it? It's okay. It's a curious story then, because for growing up, I always felt like I wanted to have a career in creative, but I weren't sure what. I mean, I was always interested in English language, had a bit of a creative flair, I thought, but I weren't sure what it was going to be. And obviously, as we can all relate, as being an Asian child, you're pushed or you're 100%. Nurtured into certain categories. Become a doctor, putter, you know what I mean? Or whatever. But at the time, as every student, I was working in retail. So I had a job in a supermarket, which held me down during my tough days, if I'm being honest. But then I kind of just, and no disrespect to anybody working in retail or anything like that, but I kind of just always felt, coming back to that feeling I had as a kid, that I'm going to do something in the creative field. I'm going to do something that I'm passionate about. And I kept having this kind of calling, and I kept feeling in myself, within my kind of soul. It's weird. They kept calling me towards, guys, you need to do something in advertising, in not even marketing, in advertising, because I love the idea of how people can create scripts and you can see a billboard and be inspired by it. It causes you to have an emotion. And I think I've just shout out to him. I think my brother was a massive part in that, because he pushed me. Because me, I'm a very, don't worry, I'll do it. I'll put things off like most humans do. Probably more so me a little bit. But he kind of hung it over me and said, look, man, if you don't chase this, you're gonna hit another 5 or 10 years. You're gonna look back and say you never did it, and why? And it's gonna be stupid reasons in the grand scheme of things. So I looked for a job in advertising marketing. I had no idea what I was going to do in that field. I just wanted something. I wanted something in that field. That's
so from a uni point of view, did you not get anything from qualifications wise?
No, I didn't leave with any degree. I left with, the only qualifications I had at the time were A levels. So I didn't leave with a degree. I left midway. So I had that was. It was challenging, because obviously I had nothing to kind of say and walk into. And I'm going back about going back about 8 years now. Going back about 8-9 years, probably even 10 years. 10 years I'm going back. And that was a case where, if you didn't have, now things have changed, but if you didn't have a relevant qualification in a business sector or a job sector, you weren't getting a job in that field. And that was how the case was in the 90s and the 80s as well, in the early 2000s. You weren't getting a job in that field. So I looked, and I think the one thing that kind of stood out was account manager roles were there. Advertising account manager and working in an agency was really hot to trot because you got to work with some big brands. Businesses themselves weren't employing for marketers as they are now because it wasn't such a business. It wasn't such an important business department at the time in businesses as growing businesses. But now it's very kind of open and hot. It's hot to trot stuff right now. So at the time I didn't have really that option. So had no relevant qualification. Had no job. Experience in the field. I thought the only way to get experience in the field was I might as well just set up my own business. And literally, it's so funny because at the time I look back at it and I think, man, I was not equipped to start an own. I've seen other successful business owners right now, some of which you have on this show, some of which we host at our networking event. And I'm like, wow, I did not have the tools that I could, I should have had to start that business. But you get pushed. When you're chasing something that you don't want, you have to do something you've never done before. You have to do things that you've never done before. And like that, I was pushed in that, okay, I've got to do this. And it taught me some great skills. So I went and found, I saw a niche in taxis because obviously, again, being Asian, we naturally have relatives that are in the field. So I had relatives that were in the field. I knew a lot of people that were taxi drivers. One thing I also learned and researched and found out was the fact that there wasn't a taxi advertising business based in Birmingham. So already that was a bit of a niche. And I kind of me having that knowledge of the industry, I thought that can, play quite well. So I just went and launched it. And it's funnily enough, actually, because the concept of the business was for something else. So I bought a domain name. I'd bought assets, if you like, for something else. And I just sat on the idea. And the taxi thing just basically came up as a gap in the market at the time. And I thought, if I don't do it now, I'll never do this. I just did it.
How old were you?
I think I was 23 at the time.
Okay.
23, 24. And I'll tell you when I did it, actually, the period of my life where I did it, I actually broke my leg playing football. And I couldn't do anything for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do this. You know what I mean?
Can't wait to break the other leg.
Yeah. If I can't do this now, what am I going to have to break to do this? And so I just went with it. I just started.
Like you said, you couldn't get the experience, and then you started a business.
Yeah.
Nowadays, is that something that you would recommend someone listening? If you can't get the experience, go and start yourself, or would you still say, look, persevere, get a job, learn the industry, learn even the basics, and then think about starting your business then?
I was about to say, when you asked that question, I was about to say 100% go start on your own, because I'm thinking you shouldn't be fearless.
Yeah.
But now that with the other thing that you added, there's a caveat to that where you can do a lot of learning yourself. You can go and do a lot of e-learning. You can go and speak to people. There's so many things you can do. There's so many resources available to the average person that there's no excuse not to learn and perfect your craft. But it's understanding exactly what you want to do.
But my reservation to that, 100%, you can do it yourself and learn, but then it's that credibility. Because
100%.
You know what I mean? It's like if I have someone there who's saying, "Oh, I'm self-taught and this is what I can do," compared to someone who's saying, "Yeah, I worked for 5-10 years here, learnt my craft there, and now I'm doing my own." Naturally, I'm going to be pulled more towards someone who's had that
100%.
background.
But you're a diligent business owner, so you'll do background checks. You work in HR, so you would do that. But you'd also be interested to learn that 45% of marketers haven't got a qualification. So that's marketers that work within businesses. That's marketers that work within agencies that haven't got an actual relevant qualification.
So does that devalue the profession?
No, I don't think it devalues the profession. I think what it does is, I think this is the interesting thing, and I think this kind of irks me a little bit, but it's a valid talking topic where what happens is, because it's something that's doable, because anybody with a phone can basically go on social media and post a picture and write some copy next to it and publish it, that makes it less valuable in the sense of that anybody can do it, but that doesn't mean that anybody
especially
should do it.
Especially if it goes viral as well.
100%.
Yeah.
So if you do one post and it goes you get 1,000 likes off it or something crazy like that, all of a sudden you're going to have that, you've got that instant gratification where you've gone "Ooh, I've just done this and I've got some positive feedback. That means I'm good at this." But let me just flip it on its head. I can submit company accounts doesn't mean I'm good at them. I can plaster a wall, doesn't mean I'm good at it. Like I'd probably paint a wall.
I can drive a car fast, doesn't mean I'm a Formula 1 driver.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I could probably paint a wall, but if you said to me now, Gurdas, I want to make you in charge of interior decorating this whole three floor building, I can't do that. You know what I mean? So there's that element of where people are going to have to, learning techniques, learning strategy, learning, each platform. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a marketer, right? And I don't necessarily like social media. You know what I mean? And that people hear that and they think, what's he on about? But what people would forget is there's many
Loads of
layers, facets to marketing.
So just on that then, so there are a lot of facets of marketing. So you got your digital marketing, your general marketing, advertising campaigns, this new term that's thrown around, guerrilla marketing and all this sort of stuff. So you obviously, and even probably to now, you're probably still shying away from what would be classed as digital marketing. Yeah. You're more... What would you say? Yeah, what would you call it? More traditional marketing, advertising campaign.
Yeah. So probably more for me. It's more a case of kind of being a bit omni-channel, if you like, where you're using multiple platforms but transcending that message through multiple platforms. So it could be like traditional marketing, for example. If we say traditional marketing back in the days, in like the 60s and 70s and 80s, it was like print. Print was the thing. That was the platform to get through to your audience, or TV was the platform. You know what I mean? So it's that, and that would be considered advertising. So there's many levels to it. So for marketing, for example, is a softer way of you telling your audience, "I'm great." Yeah. You know what I mean? Advertising is using multiple platforms to shout and demonstrate, "I'm great," and get that audience. PR is another platform, like a newspaper, doing it for you, saying they're great to buy credibility. Branding is a customer coming straight to you and saying, "I hear that you're great," kind of thing. And there's many different levels to it. And I think with me personally, I'm more kind of, my interest is campaign marketing, working on projects, using outdoor, and how that transcends into
what would be an example of so when you say campaign marketing, what would be an example of campaign marketing?
Okay, so for example, one of the greatest known campaigns in modern times. So, for example, Specsavers, well-known brand. Yeah. So they launched a campaign. So if you break it down, they wanted to be known for explicit reason. You know what I mean? That they are the one-stop shop for when it comes to purchasing glasses, right? Now, if you break that down, the first thing they did is that would be like a brief. That would be like, we need to tackle this message. We want to do everything we can to, when we get inside somebody's head, this is what they remember us for. That we are the one-stop shop to buy glasses. Now that transcended into a campaign in itself that then became a slogan, which was "should have gone to Specsavers." Now that campaign of "should have gone to Specsavers" is, has been one of the most successful campaigns in modern day history in terms of advertising and marketing, because it's used in a number of platforms. For example, last week or 2 weeks ago, they were all over the news because it was celebrated 20 years of that campaign. Should have gone to Specsavers.
I was going to say, hearing that statement, "should have gone to Specsavers," has been a long time. So it's been 20 years.
It was the anniversary of it, wow. I think last week, 20 years. And to celebrate it, what they did was, and I think this is where the fun stuff comes into it, and, linking to other platforms to one core message, which was "should have gone to Specsavers," and we are the one-stop shop for, glasses. They decided to, traditionally you've got a billboard that comes across the landscape. So they got a landscape billboard, like the actual covering for it, the vinyl of the billboard. And on a landscape billboard, they put it portrait.
Okay.
So it looked as if it was put on the wrong way. It was put portrait with the slogan of "should have gone to Specsavers."
Yeah.
And I think that then basically beautifully demonstrates how using an outdoor method of marketing, or advertising if you like, then basically delivers that same message of that campaign. But in other examples of campaigns, now businesses, small businesses, you might have it yourself, Omar, where you know what your business does, you're happy with what you're doing, but you've got this great idea. For example, I was speaking to a learning provider not so long ago, and they basically want to celebrate the fact that they have some great alumni that have passed through their halls and passed through their institution, and now they're thinking of launching a campaign of how we can basically get them involved with stuff and basically highlight them and what they've done. So that doesn't necessarily go into the day-to-day social media posting, email campaigns, you know what I mean, of your average daily marketing tactics and techniques, but it's a separate project that basically dovetails into the holistic view of this is what we want to be known as, and achieve the overall goal of being a dominant leader in the industry of or sector of education, for example.
So what is the primary reason, or let's say primary intention of a campaign? Is it sales or is it awareness?
So you'd probably say marketing as a whole. Just marketing as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny one, because that has changed. And you know what? Depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer. Yeah. But if you look at like the definition of it, it's changed. Like this, you get some schools of thought that will say there's 7 reasons to market for marketing. Some say there's 3 reasons to market. But for me, purposely, like for example, like the 3 primary purposes of marketing, widely known, is capturing the attention of your target market. It's persuading a customer to purchase your product, so sales, if you like. So it's awareness and sales, and then like providing the customer with a low risk action to take, making them take an action, which could be ideally buying your product. But it comes down to awareness and sales. And what annoys me sometimes, I hear it all the time, is like the primary reason for marketing is sales. It should always be numbers and sales. It's not the primary reason. It's one of the primary reasons, but it's not the primary reason. For example, you could be a charity and you just want to raise awareness of what the great things that you guys do. You could be, which is a big thing, it's a big thing in corporates right now, is you want to raise awareness that your company is a great company to work for. So you could go on LinkedIn, for example, and you see a lot of content of a company that's basically highlighting how great it is to work for our company. And that's not necessarily a sale of a product. You know what I mean? It's a sale of a sort, but it's not a sale of a product. It's not going to affect their bottom line. It could affect a company's bottom line in a negative way, because obviously you're putting more money into resourcing. But
I suppose it's a tool, isn't it? And I suppose ultimately, in one way, one shape or form, it links to sales and bottom line. Because the example you give about the company advertising, look, we're a great place to work. Well, it's doing it so that it can recruit best talent, it can retain best talent. That in itself has a knock-on effect, because if your turnover is not high, you're keeping the best talent motivated and they're performing. It has an overall approach of the business
brand awareness.
Yeah,
it's more a brand awareness tactic, isn't it? That would be more a brand awareness. That wouldn't affect the bottom line of a sales of a particular product.
No.
But as a brand and as an institution, if you like, it's the betterment of that institution. It's the betterment of, okay, we are known as, we are an industry leader because we're the best company to work for.
I know Specsavers, we go back to the Specsavers example, like you said, look, they just celebrated 20 years off a campaign and off a message. But generally speaking, a small business that doesn't have the resources of Specsavers, etc. But if they were to, let's say, create some sort of level of awareness, it took, how long does it normally take? What would you say a campaign or a marketing strategy should look at embedding a certain message?
I think that the main thing is, right, and I think you'll get this from marketers all across all of the world, really, and they'll be doing the same thing, is the first thing you got to look at as a business when you are looking to launch a marketing campaign is budget. That's the first defining thing. Like, they will always ask that, and you see those memes where you be like client budget and client expectations. You know what I mean?
Mismatch.
Yeah, it's a complete mismatch, and that happens in every business department. And I think that's the thing. The first thing, it's got to come off budget. So if you tell me, if you can say, oh, this is the budget, then you can start setting expectations off the back of that, because you can say, well, X company have done this method, for example. So let's just say, for example, we've got this X pot of money, because we're not going to put money out there. We've got X pot of money here. This is what we're going to spend. Now, with that X pot of money, we can look at, all right, we've the next most important thing for your business is looking at who your audience is. That is the most important thing when it comes to marketing. I believe it's your audience and how your brand is perceived to that audience. If anybody says anything different, I disagree.
Off with their head.
Off with their head. Yeah, I disagree. It's always going to be your audience. It's not your competition. It is not your competition, because your competition is driven by the audience, it's driven by the market. So the first thing is you got that pot of money, and then you go look and find that audience. And then the idea is looking at how you're going to basically target that audience through the platforms that you can put yourself out there that marry with your brand and how much money you're willing to spend. So if you have got thousands of pounds and your audience is, I don't know, men over 30 or men between 16 plus, sorry, men 16 plus, you'd sponsor football teams and do all that sort of stuff. So it's just looking at those two things: budget, audience, and then from there you can put set timelines to what you want to achieve. Fascinating.
We're going to take a short break, but after the break, G, what I want to speak about is that old question of, if I do a campaign or whatever, where's my return on investment? Do you know what I mean? People are going to be because that's ultimately when you talk about budgets. If I'm going
100%.
So we'll dive into a bit of that, dive into a bit of other marketing facets as well, because it's just so varied, so vast as well. But yeah, guys, you're listening to the Business Hour here on Unity FM. I'm your host, Umar Rashid. We have Gurdas Singh here today talking about marketing and advertising and campaigns. So after the break, we'll be diving more about return on investment in marketing campaigns, how best to approach marketing campaigns. If you're a startup and you're looking to market, what facets, what platforms, what can they do as well. So inshallah, stay tuned and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the Business Hour. I'm your host, Umar Rashid, and we have today with us Gurdas Singh. Gurdas is going to hear talking about marketing and advertising. First part of the show, Gurdas went through his journey of how marketing, how you got into marketing, etc. Spoke about, the different facets of marketing. One of the facets of marketing is niche marketing in regards to campaigns, but I suppose when you talk about, let's talk about like your general marketing now.
Traditional marketing.
And this is,
when you say traditional, do you mean digital?
When people talk about it and people get quizzed about it or asked about it, I'm guessing more often than not, and I know this is me personally, I'd be looking at, okay, look, if I'm gonna go down these avenues, what's my return on investment? How can through this campaign someone say to me, okay, you know what,
you're going to get X amount return,
or you're going to get X amount of views or whatever? Because when you look at digital and you put, you can get these analytics through these platforms, isn't it? Whether it's LinkedIn or Google or whatever platform you use, you get certain level of analytics. You could click on a link which might then track the journey of someone. Do you know what I mean? You get all of that.
You get a lot of value in that.
But if I'm sitting in a car and I drive past, I see a billboard, marketing way, and you're tackled with, okay, but how can I track return on investment? Or do you know, what's your response to that?
So I think the first thing you got to look at, I think, when it comes to like tracking and all that sort of stuff, there's a lot of analysis you can do. And there's loads of analysis methods, and something I learned on my sim qualification. But I think first thing is you take it really nice, easy and simple. Always simplify things. I think that's the best way to approach it. I think the first thing you got to question and ask yourself as a business owner and put it out there is, are you a push or pull business? Now, are you a business that is going to obtain a customer by pushing your brand and shouting about and showing people why they should have it in your life? Or are people going to naturally go searching for your business because they have a need for that requirement? So, for example, I'll use you as an example. You offer HR services. Now, businesses would normally go traditionally looking for that because it serves as a need at the time because of whatever reason they've got a pain in their business and they need to go and solve it. However, they probably won't go looking for a day at a golf course. That probably wouldn't be that. That doesn't have the same sort of pain as I've just lost one of my best members of staff. You know what I mean? So I think that's the first thing to look at. And I think when you're looking at ROI, and I think most businesses, they always want to have, what do I want to get out of it at the start? If that's what your initial kind of mindset is, I hate to put it in a blunt way, but you shouldn't really be looking at outdoor advertising. You shouldn't be looking at TV advertising. Probably shouldn't be looking at print to start with, because say if you are a growing brand, or you're new to that concept, because you're not going to see an instant return on investment on those sort of platforms all the time. You might, if you've got a great seasonal offer, or you're a seasonal brand, or you're trying to raise awareness for a particular thing, yeah. But digital is unrivaled when it comes to that. Pushing ads on social media, pushing ads on Google and SEO, for example, on pay-per-click, as it seems, video ads, and something like a platform like a YouTube, website banners and stuff like that. Maybe even email campaigns, buying email lists, the ethical way. That is going to see you more return on investment, considering you've got your audience right and you've got your messaging right. That's where your copywriting will come into play. That is going to see you more direct return on investment than having a taxi ad, for example. Because you can track it. You can actually see, like you just said, you can see all of the analytics behind it. You can see who's read it, you can see who's clicked on it, and all that sort of stuff, and for how long, and you can track that. And then what you can do is, and on average, I think they say it's 3% when it comes to click ads, and it comes to digital ads and stuff like that. That's an average. Please don't run with that. That's an average. But what you can do, the beauty of you have with that form of marketing, is you can measure it. You can take, 100 quid, you can take 200 quid, you can get free vouchers, you can get free credit, and you can test, and you can say, I'm going to use this as a sample, and then put my rest of the money in it, knowing that I'm going to get this ROI off the back of it. Now, when we look at other forms of marketing, so there's outdoor, which is billboards, taxis, buses, roundabouts, bus shelters, all that sort of stuff.
Anywhere you can,
and
put
digital, and digital out of home as well. Digital outdoor is like your digital screens.
Yeah,
and then you've got your print, your magazines, and stuff like that, newspapers. When you're looking at that should be used as, ideally a brand building exercise, a brand awareness exercise. So you want to basically realise is, like, for example,
so it goes back to that question, isn't it? Okay. In this instance, marketing's not about sales. This is about awareness.
So there's different platforms for different things.
Yeah.
So if, for example, a lot of one of the top three things is about businesses. When you say to them and say, why do you think you're not performing as well when it comes to money in sales? They'll say, people don't know about us. People don't know about us. Or, well, what are you doing? Well, we've put out posts on our social media channel which has 50 followers. Well, clearly, then you're not talking to a large enough audience, and that's why you'll find businesses and brands sponsoring a platform that has a big audience for their target market. That's why you find brands sponsoring a team kit on a massive football, a football team, because then we're assimilating with our audience. Then that same brand will be on TV, and they say, "Oh, I've heard of them." It's buying credibility with your target market or an audience. And by the way, when it comes to an audience, if you're doing those forms of marketing, you want to look at those forms of marketing, your audience better be a wide net. You've got to be willing to cast a wide net of, this is a service, a product that's going to affect, thousands of lives, essentially, and that can be marketed to thousands of millions of people. And that's where you can start looking at, all right, this is the money we're going to set off. Let's just say outdoor is not a traditional form for you. So to put 80% of your budget on what you think is going to get you a direct return, your digital, what you think is going to get you a direct return. And obviously that changes depending, again, on your business, depending on your target audience. That's going to be different for most businesses. Some businesses might not benefit from posting on Instagram. Some make their living off it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. With these platforms, do you think from your experience, certain platforms work better depending on what you're offering? So, for example, if it's simple as, okay, here's a product and we've got a sale on this product, etc., are there certain platforms that are better suited in comparison to, like you said, I'm providing a service or an accountant's providing a service? But then, okay, just popped into my head. So with an accountant, right, generally you could say, look, you need an accountant, this is what we offer. But when it comes to, that January deadline, tax self-assessment deadline or something like that, are certain platforms better are certain platforms better suited if you've got a seasonal offer or something specific or niche, or actually doesn't really matter?
That's where I think that's a variable in that respect, because obviously there are certain platforms which will have more of your target audience in that platform. So you might find that, for example, LinkedIn and Instagram, they're two different people that go on that platform. One's a business one, one's, you know, a younger crowd, for example. So there's that. But obviously with the seasonal element of things, yeah, you know, that's where your audience might be more persuaded or more motivated to buy your product at the time, because there's a deadline attached to it. So for example, you know, file your taxes, people are then like, you know, that's the time where people will be looking, for example. So go looking for your audience then. And then what you're doing is, with these other platforms, it might not be that they're there at that's the best platform to use. You're just casting a wider net. You're just throwing resource, because you know that, for example, that 80% of your sales could come out this month. So you're obviously then going to naturally put more resource at that, because you know I've got a better chance of catching a fish, catching a customer in this month, because afterwards it might not be the same thing. And I think, again, going back to like when you said about the platforms and return on investment, it really just comes down to then, you know, really the devil's in the detail of trying to really looking at your target market and target audience and building a profile to them and seeing where you can catch them.
What I'm essentially hearing, G, is with marketing, and I suppose with most aspects in a business, businesses should have a marketing strategy. 100%. And I think, 100%. do you think businesses, or maybe startups or smaller businesses, do you think they have that, or do you think that's where they lack?
I think that the question, what it should be, adding a caveat to that, is that they should have a realistic marketing plan.
Okay.
I mean,
so give me an example of an unrealistic marketing plan.
So you want to turn your, for example, you want to turn your sales tenfold, but you're only putting, like, you know, according to what you want to achieve, you're putting, you know, 10% as budget or 5% as budget. And you want astronomical numbers, but you're not willing to put the resource or the budget behind it. Or maybe it's not even budget. Maybe it's thinking you're not looking at, oh, there's a seasonal peak here, or we're going to need this sort of resource to bring that in, or maybe in terms of the sales process, we need time for this to bed in. You got to consider macro factors as well. There is like analysis you can do. There's an analysis called the pestle analysis, where you look at, you know, political, economical, social.
You get in proper textbook.
It's just that because sometimes there isn't that platform for that they can go on and get this kind of basic knowledge and stuff like that. And it's a case of, if you are a startup, just be honest with yourself. Just be honest and say, this is what we can afford. You shouldn't kind of base a strategy of what you want. You should base a strategy of what you can put down. Base a strategy of what resource you have. Who's going to be doing this? Who's going to be managing this? It's all easy to say, yeah, we're going to go crazy on social media. Who's going to be posting every day? Who's going to be researching these topics? Who's going to be writing those blogs in SEO? It doesn't happen just instantly, just because it's so accessible and we see a lot of people doing it. And that comes back down to having, you know, the right people doing it. Just because it is accessible to do doesn't mean it's easy to do. And I think there's still a cost attached to doing the free forms of marketing. So the free forms of marketing, like social media posting, like blogging, like, you know, tweaking your SEO, like emails, like, you know, networking and stuff like that. There's still a cost attached to that.
You know, when you talk about that, G, and I've had a few marketing people come on the show, and I've always asked the question, so I feel like it's only fair I ask you same question.
Yeah, okay. No
just to get your viewpoint. There's so many platforms, G. There are so many platforms. When you look at digital marketing, you know, there's LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and then when you look at your traditional marketing, like you just said, look, there's magazines, there's newspapers, there's TV, there's radio, there's billboards, etc., etc.
Yeah.
When it comes to marketing, do you advise actually you should do everything on all platforms, or do you just narrow it down to, I don't know, a handful, or what would you advise?
So we look at it through the lens of a startup, for a new launching brand, for example. If I was launching a business tomorrow, I would be honest with myself, and like I've just said, what resource can I allocate to this? Now, if I've got enough resource, I would go with the omni-channel presence, an omni-channel approach, meaning I will try and tackle as many channels as I can, because of course, the more I put out there through different channels, of course I'm going to get more attention. Of course, that's going to be more eyeballs on my brand. Of course, that means more chance of getting sales. Brilliant. But let's be realistic, tone it down. You probably haven't got the expertise for every single channel. Don't care what anybody says. Not one person can be really expert at video and each social media platform and SEO and all of that. You can be good at each, you know what I mean? But it's hard. We have to acknowledge, we have to respect. It's a craft in each of these things. There's experts in certain fields. You know what I'm saying? So, A, that's not going to happen. But B, it comes down to exactly like A, what product what are you pushing? But again, the main thing is your target audience. What the message you're putting out there and what you want to achieve from it. Who is that person that you want to kind of be talking to at the end of the day? It's about having conversations. Who do you want that conversation with, or who do you want interest to be brand? Let's say it's a B2C product. Who do you want to be interested in going on your website and potentially purchasing your product? So then you got to go and find who that person is. Then go find where they hang out. Let's say, for example, in this scenario, it's Twitter or Instagram. So I'm going to then be putting my eggs in that Instagram basket, because I'm going to say I've got more chance of capturing that audience, because I believe they are the audience for me. So I'm going to put my resource and energy in that kind of, that room of Instagram, and that's what I'm going to go. And that's going to be my initial approach with it. And by the way, I mean, unless you're willing to put money down on social media, because that's a free form, isn't it? And obviously everyone's going to flock to social media because it's a free form, but engagement isn't going to be great on that, and that isn't, because what people are raving about TikTok right now, because it's the freshest of these other social media platforms, and people say, oh yeah, TikTok, because the engagement is off the charts right now, because they're still trying to build that follower base where people start using it more. But guess what? 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, that engagement's going to drop, and that's going to be filled with like people that are promoting, like buying, putting ads on that platform, not the natural stuff, not the organic stuff. It's happened with all these social media platforms. And I think so what you want to do is, be honest about what you're doing there as well. So, don't expect to just be getting sales instantly off social media posting. Use it for, putting your character and value of your brands out there. You want people to know what you're about as a business. So before you start asking for sales, put what you're out there about, what are you about, assimilate with your audience. Get, it's the law of attraction. Make yourself similar to your audience. Put out there what you expect people to expect of you. Use it as an awareness tool. Use that to start off with. Don't go crazy with this. Use it as that. This is what we're about. So people nowadays, social media is a bit of a scanning tool. If you want to check the credibility of a business, you go online, you go on Google, you check out the website, you check out the
it is scary what you can actually find out. I mean, it's good in some instances, especially if you can find out something about a business or a person or a potential employee or etc. But at the same time, it can be a bit scary as well.
It is a bit.
My daughter googled me the other day, and thankfully nothing came up. Nothing too much. Nothing too much came up.
Yeah.
I've hid that well. Very quickly, G, I want to just touch on guerrilla marketing. Yeah. I'm finding this new term. I'm
going to have to correct you. It's not a new term. Guerrilla marketing has been around for decades.
Has it?
Yeah. It's come. Sorry to correct you.
Yeah.
It's come from. It actually came from. The inspiration came from guerrilla warfare. So I forget the gentleman's name who wrote the book about guerrilla marketing decades ago.
Yeah.
It's like a bible to like marketers, to be fair. And with that, the guerrilla warfare was, I'm not going to get too graphic, but like, showing public displays of, war, essentially, to make a message, to make a point. And it's something that could be done, on a wider level, but they make sure it's a public display to make a point. And, marketers got a hold of that, and they're using it in their own way. And I think that, especially if you're a startup, or if you're a business that you want to gain attention, right? And it's not just for startups; it's all types of businesses. But you need to gain attention, because that is, again, it's the it's the cycle. You need attention to get people to kind of buy from your brand or whatever you want to achieve from your marketing. that is one of the best ways of doing it.
What's an example of guerrilla marketing? If someone's listening and they'll be like, okay, give me an example. What's an example of a guerrilla
guerrilla marketing? Yeah, I'll give you an example. So there's a few good ones out there, but one I could come to like very at the top of my head. I saw it yesterday. I love it. A brand that I follow on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, and it's not because of my personal preference, it's because of their marketing is amazing. It's called Thursday. It's a dating app. Now, this, from what I understand, it's that the app actually becomes more active on the actual Thursday. So for the other days, it's not as active, but on the Thursday, you can actually connect to people and whatever. Now, their whole thing is about making Thursdays exciting, right? So they do every Thursday, or before a Thursday. Actually, it was yesterday. Let's get this one out.
It's a Wednesday.
Yeah, but it was Wednesday. They essentially highlight, oh yeah, Thursday's coming. People will take a picture of the event, put it out on social media, and whatever, through osmosis, people learn about, oh, this is this thing. It's the same thing. They're buying, essentially, the amount of social media posts they get off that campaign trumps doing a digital marketing campaign by a long shot. There's all sorts of messages. But his messaging is stopping you and making you think. It's stopping you in your tracks. It's like shock value. So that's what guerrilla marketing is essentially. It's using a platform to create and to make somebody stop and make sure they look at what you're doing. Yeah, it's out of the norm. It's out of the parameters of what is considered the norm. Most basically used him as an ambassador, ran a whole campaign on billboards, and it changed it to saying, "Oh, we'll just say we met at a mosque."
Potentially, some people might have rubbed people up the wrong way.
Take it a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's the fine danger, isn't it? Of what some people might think of, oh, that's a bit witty or potentially trying to be a bit clever or whatever.
It's kind of the point, though, Omar.
But it's actually quite. It could be seen as offensive as well. Do you know what I
understand that it's offensive to some people, and obviously that is a thing. But it's the point where it's polarizing, when people start talking about it.
But from Musmatch's point of view, is that them saying, well, yeah, it might be right, it might be wrong, whatever, but people are talking about us now.
Yeah, and that's where...
So is that the old adage of, any marketing is good marketing?
I don't believe in all publicity is good publicity, by the way. But in that sense, it is, definitely. In other senses, no, because, you can have a really bad PR piece set about your business. Yeah. That's still publicity. It ain't good publicity. I don't care what anybody says. It isn't. But like that, they've used it in the format of their brand, and they've used it. They're building their character. They've built their character, and that's one of the pillars of marketing, is building your character.
You know what, G? It's so fascinating, marketing. There's so much we can talk about, and I'm just conscious of time. Actually, we're literally coming to the end of the show. So massive thank you for your insight, and no doubt I'll get you back on, and we can continue with this. Just before we wrap up, anyone listening, people listening, want to get in touch with you, want to pick your brains, especially what I'd really, really like to shout out to is any young aspiring marketers who may be thinking about what can I do, or wanting that advice or guidance sort of thing. How can they reach out to you?
You can catch me on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Gurdas Singh, and LinkedIn as well, Gurdas Singh on LinkedIn. Can I just add to that? Obviously, I'm open to speak to all aspiring marketers, but I know that in the past it's been especially tough for those of ethnic minorities to break the field. Yeah. And there's still a massive, we're still behind on that curve. So I'm more than happy to help with any advice, anything you need. I'm happy to help with in any way I can.
Wicked. Thank you, Gurdas.
No worries, mate.
Thank you very much
for having me, man.
No, nice one. Guys, you've been listening to The Business Hour here on Unity FM. If you caught the back end of this show and you want a chance to listen again, the show will be replayed again on Saturday at 5 o'clock. Alternatively, visit my YouTube channel and the shows will be uploaded on there. My YouTube channel handle is at Umar Rashid HR. Please do connect with me on other social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Again, the handle for all of those is at Umar Rashid HR. Please do tune in again. We're back again next Tuesday, 6 o'clock, with another fantastic guest, no doubt. Until then, keep safe, and inshallah, speak to you soon. Assalamu alaikum.
And I praise the Most High as I look to the sky. Saw I walk into Him.